above, the court concluded as follows, and I quote, "Upon a true and proper interpretation of Article 75 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, the President of the Republic of Ghana, in agreeing to the transfer of Mahmoud Umar Mohammed bin Atif and Khalid Mohammed Salih Al-Debi to the Republic of Ghana, required the ratification of an Act of Parliament or a resolution of Parliament supported by the votes of more than one-half of all the members of Parliament, and by virtue of the failure to obtain such ratification, the agreement is unconstitutional," end quote. It is therefore surprising that the current government, which superintended over this unconstitutional act, which was pronounced upon by the Supreme Court, will once again enter into a similar agreement with the same United States of America and proceed to receive foreign nationals into our country, pursuant to the said agreement, without regard to the clear constitutional requirement to seek parliamentary ratification. The fact that we, the minority members on the Foreign Affairs Committee, had to learn of this development in the media is very disturbing and is consistent with attempts by the executive to disregard the other arms of government. We have learned that some of these foreign nationals are being held in detention centers against their wishes and have gone ahead to institute legal action against our government for the breaches of their fundamental human rights. Despite these actions and genuine concerns being raised by Ghanaians and the international media, we are told that some 40 more people are due to arrive in the country pursuant to this same unconstitutional agreement. We have taken note of the comments by the Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs to the effect that the agreement with the United States is a memorandum of understanding and will require parliamentary approval only when it is, in his words, elevated to the status of an agreement. The minister further claimed that both the Honorable Attorney General of Ghana and that of the United States have advised that the agreement does not need parliamentary approval. We wish to remind the Honorable Minister that the Constitution makes no such distinction between formal agreements and memorandum of understanding. As held by the Supreme Court in the Bamford case, the provision even covers agreements reached by note verbals. The attempts by the minister to downplay this agreement in the face of this clear provision of the Constitution is very disturbing. Indeed, in the case of Broja Jemfi and Attorney General, the government of President Akufo-Addo, in consonance with Article 75 of our Constitution, laid before Parliament a defense cooperation agreement with the United States of America for ratification, even though the said agreement had not been signed. The Supreme Court held that the then government was right in laying the said agreement before Parliament, for even such unsigned agreements come under Article 75 once government takes steps to implement same. It is therefore irrelevant whether the agreement is signed or it is called an agreement or a memorandum of understanding or by exchange of note verbals. Parliamentary ratification is required for the implementation of any such agreement. We are also shocked by the Honorable Minister's claim that the Honorable Attorney General advised Cabinet that this agreement does not require parliamentary approval. The Attorney General of the Republic was the Deputy Attorney General when the decision in the Bamford case was delivered by the Supreme Court. He cannot therefore feign ignorance about this case and purport to give a legal opinion which therefore contradicts the decision of the Supreme Court, if indeed he did. The opinion of the United States Attorney General, if it was indeed given, is of no consequence in our country, as both the constitutional provision and the Supreme Court decision are very clear. Indeed, the Supreme Court held in the Bamford case that the distinction in the United States between executive agreements, which does not require the approval of Congress, and treaties, which require such approval, are not applicable in Ghana in the light of the clear constitutional provision in Article 75. The government's conduct in operationalizing the agreement with the United States without parliamentary ratification is a direct constitutional violation of Article 75 and an affront to the authority of the Supreme Court. It is therefore deeply concerning that the government continues to operationalize the agreement with the United States despite these flagrant constitutional breaches. Such conduct reflects a lack of respect for the rule of law, which is one of the fundamental pillars of our constitutional democracy. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, beyond this blatant constitutional breach, the agreement raises pressing concerns of sovereignty, security, and policy. While regional integration remains a core value of our foreign policy, it cannot be stretched to justify the forced deportation of foreign nationals deported from other countries. The ECOWAS Protocol on Free Movement concerns voluntary travel, not forced deportations orchestrated by a non-ECOWAS state. On the international stage, the foreign policy consequences of this agreement are equally alarming. Ghana has, over the years, built a proud reputation for principled diplomacy rooted in non-alignment, regional solidarity, and respect for human rights. The decision to serve as a receiving point for West African deportees against their wishes with emphasis from the United States risks our country being perceived as aligning itself with the United States government's current immigration enforcement regime, one which has been criticized as harsh and discriminatory. To associate Ghana with such policies could have several negative implications for our country, particularly within the African continent. We therefore reiterate our call on the government to suspend with immediate effect the unconstitutional implementation of this agreement until Parliament has duly exercised its constitutional mandate to scrutinize same and ratify it or otherwise. We further urge government to provide full clarity on the processes, safeguards, and other broader implications associated with receiving these deportees, including the measures, if any, that have been taken to protect Ghana's security interests, Ghana's foreign policy, and the Gaza conflict. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, we have also taken note of recent public pronouncements made by the Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs on the ongoing conflict in the Gaza Strip. In those remarks, the minister characterized the developments in Gaza as, and I quote, genocide, end quote, and further indicated that Ghana has made clear its position in engagements with Israeli authorities while also expressing solidarity with the Palestinian people. While we recognize the need for Ghana to remain an active voice in the international community and to speak on matters implicating humanitarian concerns and respect for international law, we must emphasize the importance of consistency and balance in such pronouncements. Article 40 of our national constitution provides broad principles to guide Ghana's international relations. These include the promotion and protection of Ghana's national interests, adherence to international law and treaty obligations, and the fostering of respect for international cooperation. Since our country's independence, Ghana's diplomacy under successive administration has been guided by the principles of non-alignment, mutual respect, and peaceful coexistence. This enduring posture has enabled successive governments to engage credibly with all sides in situations of conflict while preserving Ghana's role as a respected and impartial voice of peace, dialogue, and rule of law. By describing the events in Gaza in absolute terms and aligning the country explicitly with one side in a highly polarized conflict, the government risks compromising the delicate balance that has long safeguarded Ghana's credibility as an impartial actor on the international stage. Our tradition has been to call for peace, dialogue, and adherence to international law without issuing declarations that may prejudice our ability to play a mediating or bridge-building role. Successive governments have, over decades, interpreted and applied these principles by maintaining a posture of independence and impartiality in international conflicts. It is therefore crucial, ladies and gentlemen of the press, that in responding to this conflict, Ghana's official statements continue along this tradition, speaking clearly to the need for peace, the protection of civilians, and adherence to international law, by doing so in a manner that avoids the perception of taking sides in a very deeply divisive conflict. The Minority Caucus wishes to emphasize that Ghana's enduring strength in international relations has always come from its ability to maintain independence, neutrality, and credibility, even when global powers have sought to draw us into their competing blocks. Departures from this tradition, if not checked, could diminish our moral authority on the international stage and compromise our wider national interests. We therefore call on the government to exercise caution and be consistent in articulating Ghana's foreign policy positions, particularly on sensitive international conflicts, such as the Gaza conflict. The government must ensure that Ghana's position reflects our long-standing commitment to non-alignment, multilateralism, and principled diplomacy, rather than hasty or unilateral declarations. Calm, measured, and nuanced diplomacy is essential for the conduct of our foreign policy in general and for addressing volatile situations such as the current conflict in particular. As members of Parliament, we take this opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to defending the sovereignty of our nation, upholding the Constitution, and preserving Ghana's hard-earned reputation as a principled and respected actor on the international stage, and will therefore be unrelentless in holding the government accountable in the conduct of our nation's foreign policy. I thank you for your attention.
So just gone by, you heard the Member of Parliament for Damango, who also doubles as the ranking on the Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration Committee of Parliament, Samuel Abdullahi Jinapo, talking about quite a number of issues. And finally, he touched on the Foreign Affairs Minister, Samuel Ablakwa, and the comments that he's made regards the Israel-Gaza war, and also the deportation of some West African nationals to Ghana. He says that it requires parliamentary ratification, for which reason he believes that the government or the minority caucus on that particular committee believe that government erred and needs to come clean on the terms of agreement with the United States of America to deport those West African nationals into their country. But then this is Newsroom here on GH1 television. I am Joshua Kodjo Mensah. Let's look at our headlines. New Global Info Analytics poll reveals a decline in President John Dramani Mahama's approval rating from 73% in July 2025 to 67% in September 2025. Also, PUC approves 1.14% increase in electricity tariffs. Water remains unchanged despite clamor for over 200% increase. Police clamps down criminal syndicate involved in armed robberies across Ahafo, Central, Eastern, and Ashanti regions. In business, Ecuador to replace Ghana, second largest world producer of cocoa. And on the international front, Donald Trump slams UN. Well, stay with me because I've got details of these and more shortly. Well, grateful for your company this morning. I am Joshua Kodjo Mensah. Now, a new poll by Global Info Analytics shows that President John Dramani Mahama's approval rating has dropped from 73% in July 2025 to 67% in September 2025. Now, despite the drop, the poll shows 2 in 3 voters approve of the performance of the president, including majority of voters from the Ashanti region on the direction of the country. Though majority of voters believe the country is headed in the right direction, the September 2025 poll shows a decline from 71% in July 2025 to 66% in September, representing a decline of points. Let's look at some of the key issues that came up in the poll put up by Global Info Analytics. So, like I said earlier, on the direction of the country, whether or not they believe that the country is headed in the right direction. But let's look at the president's job approval, how the president has performed since taking office. Now, in the July 2025 poll, we had 73% of respondents say that indeed the president is doing well. Now, in September, 67% of the respondents said the president is doing well. Now look at the disapproval rate, where 19% 20% in July believed that the president is not doing well. Now, that number has shot up to 22% in the September 2025 poll. 8% in July, where they had no opinion on the matter. Now, that has increased to 11% from what we've been told by Global Info Analytics in terms of the approval of the president. Now, whether or not the country is headed in the right direction, according to the poll by Global Info Analytics, in July, 71% of the respondents said yes, the country is headed in the right direction. But then 3 months on in September, 66% believe the country is heading in the right direction. And that also culminated in an increase in the number of people who believe that the country is heading in the wrong direction. So in July, 20% of the respondents said yes, the country was headed in the wrong direction. But then in September, that number has shot up to 23% who believe that the country is indeed headed in the wrong direction. As usual, 9% in July did not have an opinion on the matter. That has increased to 11% who don't have an opinion as at September 2025. But let's get on Zoom now and talk to Mensah Dankwa, who is Executive Director for Global Info Analytics. He's joined us. Mensah, thank you so much for joining us. So talk to me about how you came about these numbers as respondents for this poll.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. This is the traditional tracking poll we've been conducting every 90 days. And in this round of polls, we sampled voters nearly 9,500, with about 1,997 over telephone and over 7,500 face-to-face. They were engaged across the 16 regions and from 83 constituencies in the country.
Right. And so talking about the president's job approval, we've seen a decline in that, even though not steeply. What were the factors that the respondents mentioned?
No, we didn't ask them the factors, but we can only speculate. You know, this is not a comprehensive research. This is an opinion poll about issues. So we don't ask them the reasons why they are dropping their support. But if you look at the intervening period between July and now, things have happened. You talk about even the prisoner situation or the people who were deported to Ghana. That has become a topical issue now. Those have not been very good for the government. If you look at Galamsey, it's been heightened in recent times, and people are making noise about it. All those things feed into the sentiment of the public, and that affects the direction of the country, and indeed, his approval rating as a president.
And I could also speculate that these would be the same reasons why the respondents believe that the country is not headed in the right direction, where we saw a little increase in that number as well.
Absolutely, that is correct. You can assume that there's no direct evidence, but one can try to speculate that those are the reasons why we're seeing a downward trend in the numbers.
And what does this mean, all of these numbers we're seeing?
No, it's just a first sign of decline. It's not a trend yet. If it continues for 3 consecutive times, then we can say that it's a trend. And that trend is that downwards NDC is losing, or the Mama is losing the goodwill of the people. For now, it's a blip. We wait to see whether in the next period of poll, it will recover or it will continue to decline.
Very well. Mensah, thank you so much for joining us and giving us some further perspectives on the poll numbers. But let's get some reactions on this. Joining me via phone is Deputy Director of Elections for the NDC, Rashid Tanko Computer. Rashid, thank you. So barely 9 months into the administration, this poll is suggesting that the approval rating of the president is declining, although, like I said, not steeply. What's your take on that?
Well, let me say good morning to your cherished listeners. We'll take it on board. I can assure you the president is on track. The government of the NDC is on track. We are delivering the promises that we promised to the good people of Ghana. We will not be distracted by the opposition. They are the people causing all this mess. They go about creating unnecessary noise all over the place, thinking that this will bring down the government of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. It will never happen. I can assure you, our eyes are on the ball, on the prize. We are going to make sure that the people will continue to enjoy good governance. Although the polls have said certain things, we will take it on board. We will typically examine it and see where we need to work around the clock to make sure that these things are nipped in the bud.
So what do you mean when you say that the opposition is behind all of this, creating this sense among the public?
Of course, can't you see them? They're all over the place. They're all over the heightened tension all over the place, creating unnecessary fear and panic in the country, saying things that doesn't exist. These are the things they create. Talking about, look at these arrest issues that they are talking about. We just go about, the police, they just go about arresting people by heart. They arrest political miscreants, people who have issues against the state. They are the people they will arrest. And then they will go and heighten it. You will see them, anytime somebody speaks, they will march up to the police station. They will march up to Yoku, getting semblance of being targeted.
So you believe that all of this is what culminated in the public having a sense of a decline in the goodwill. But then you've mentioned as well that you take all these in good strides and put in measures. And so looking forward, what are we to expect?
I can assure you that within the shortest possible time, we will turn the tide. We will make sure that we will take appropriate measures to stabilize some of these noisemakers who have created all this unnecessary fear and panic in the system, so that Ghanaians will continue to enjoy the peace and the goodies that is coming from His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. The government is on track.
Very well. Well, Rashid, thank you for your time. That's Rashid Tanko Computer. He's Deputy Director of Elections and IT for the National Democratic Congress, NDC. Now, let's move forward. And the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission has announced a 1.14% increase in electricity tariffs effective October 1, 2025, while water tariffs remain unchanged. Now, the Commission says the adjustment was influenced by a projected exchange rate at 12.37 cedis to the dollar, which includes a 39 peso shortfall from the previous quarter. Now, this adjustment comes at a time the Electricity Company of Ghana had proposed a sharp upward review of electricity distribution charges, seeking an average 224% increase, while the Ghana Water Limited sought a 280% increase. The PURC says these adjustments are necessary to reflect prevailing economic conditions and also to ensure reliable service delivery. Right, so let's get a bit more clarity on this development. Dr. Eric Obute is Director of Research and Corporate Affairs at the PURC. Doc, thank you so much for joining me. So talk to me about what led to the decision to increase electricity tariffs by 1.14% while water tariffs remain unchanged.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. In the PURC, as I keep saying every time, we do have two tariff windows, a minor tariff window and a major tariff window.
Right.
The 1.14% has to do with the minor tariff regime, which is on a quarterly basis. So every quarter of the year, 3 months, every 3 months, we do review the tariff. So it could go down, it could go up, or remain the same. So this 1.14 is a quarterly review of the tariff.
Okay.
And in the quarterly review of the tariff, we consider 4 parameters. The weighted average cost of gas, we consider the generation mix between thermal and hydro, we consider inflation, and we consider the exchange rate. In this fourth quarter, both the weighted average cost of gas and the cost of fuel and that of the generation mix between thermal and hydro did not change. However, the depreciation of the cedi, marginal depreciation of the cedi, led to a slight increment in the electricity tariff by 1.14%. The last exchange rate that we used was 10 cedis, 70 pesos to the dollar. However, in this tariff window, we are using 12 cedis, 37 pesos to the dollar. The major tariff itself is what we are going around the country now, trying to pick information from all consumers. We have engaged stakeholders, the media, CSOs, and all other stakeholders. So it is after everything that we've done, that the major tariff will be announced, which will take effect in 2026.
Right.
But what we have now is a minor tariff review.
And Doc, one of the things that, one of the concerns that has come up is that, well, we saw the utilities basically asking for in excess of 200% increase, and they told us why, that they were having a lot of challenges, and so they would need these increments to be able to remain viable and effective. And so with these tariffs that you have announced, how do they remain viable?
Well, the 225% you saw from ECG was to do with a major tariff review. In the major tariff review, we consider both capital expenses and operational expenses. And that's what I'm saying, that's one we've not even started anything at all. We are now picking information from consumers and engaging stakeholders and everybody to make the contribution to the proposals that have been presented to the Commission.
Right.
It is after that we'll analyze the figures and give our recommendation to the board. The board will then decide on what exactly we should bring out to the public or what the consumers will pay.
Okay.
And that is supposed to take effect in January 2026 and not now.
Absolutely.
What we have now, the 1.14, is what we do on a quarterly basis by considering exchange rate. That is what has led to the 1.14%. In the major tariff, which is what they have put before us, we're going to consider all their capital expenses, including transformers, cables, pipelines, chemicals, everything, before we come out with the major tariff in 2026.
Dr. Bute, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on this development. Also joining us is Benjamin Mensah, who is the Executive Director of the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. So what's your take on what we've witnessed? He's joining us via Zoom. So Benjamin, what's your take on the increments we've seen from the PURC?
Thank you very much. I think I would have wished that Dr. Bute will be on the line for us to argue some of his figures they brought out. I think in recent times, PURC has shown a lot of incompetence and also inconsistency in terms of communicating some of these adjustments to the public. I heard he mentioned that last window they used 10 Ghana cedis, 70 pesos to the dollar to set end user tariffs. But from their announcement, they used 10 Ghana cedis, 30 pesos to the dollar to set. So if they announce that they use 10 Ghana cedis, 30 pesos, and he's telling us today that they use 10 Ghana cedis, 70 pesos, it means that the electricity end user in the third quarter was overpaid or has overpaid the price of electricity. I think they must come clear on that. Also, on the issues of under recovery, if you look at this particular quarter or the fourth quarter tariff adjustment, which is 1.14, the major reason for that upward adjustment has to do with under recoveries. And that has been the lack of transparency with respect to the activities of PURC in recent times. And the reason is that when we talk of under recovery, we also talk of over recovery. For example, if you look at the second quarter, which combined the first quarter of 2025, they used 15 Ghana cedis, 70 pesos, almost 70 pesos to set the price of electricity locally. Just after setting the price in April and they began implementing the collection in May, the cedi appreciated by almost 11%. By June, the cedi had appreciated by 34%. And these are over recoveries. What it means is that between May and June, the electricity consumer locally overpaid the price of electricity by about 34% using only the exchange rate. The PURC didn't consider that in their third quarter, but rather the increased price of electricity locally. Now, if you take another factor they mentioned with respect to this particular fourth quarter adjustment, they mentioned inflation. Annual inflation for the second quarter was around 22%. The actual inflation on the ground was around 13% by June. What it also means is that the Ghanaian electricity consumer was paying 9 percentage points higher than the proposed or the inflation they proposed in their tariff adjustment. So I think that in recent time, PURC has been doing pick and choose. They are they are not transparent, and I think that they need to critically relook at how they price electricity locally. I have maintained on several platforms that our electricity pricing must not only be factored using macroeconomic indicators like exchange rate and inflation, or using market-driven indicators like the energy mix that we want to talk about. But beyond this, we need to look at our industrial growth. We need to look at unemployment. And these are critical factors to push unemployment to the barest minimum. These are critical factors to ensure that our industry grow to and become very competitive, either locally or on the international market. And electricity pricing can be used to detect or even drive growth locally. But beyond this, when PRC begins to think that at any point in time, because they benefit from upward adjustment of tariffs, they will continue to increase tariffs. At the time, they even know that all the indicators are against them is a bad practice from this particular institution.
So, Ben, is it the case that per the parameters, talking about inflation, talking about exchange rate, we shouldn't have been paying more?
Yes, based on their own indicators, I think that the Ghanaian electricity users shouldn't have been paying more because one is that if they are under recoveries as they indicated in the fourth tariff structure, they must also note that the Ghanaian for some time now has been paying over the price of electricity. So if the Ghanaian is paying and giving most of these utilities certain windfalls, I think it behoves on PRC being fair under 538 that established them to ensure that that windfall is passed onto the Ghanaian electricity user, and I think they've not been fair in that part of their activities or of that responsibility as a utility company that serves the interests of public utilities and also consumers who utilize these services. I think that prices of electricity ought to have been cheaper than what we are observing today on the market.
Absolutely. Ben, thank you so much for engaging with us. But some of you have also been sharing your thoughts on social media. Nana Amakwa has joined me with those thoughts on social media. Nana, so what is the reaction like on social media this morning?
Well, over recovery, under recovery, necessary, unnecessary. Here's what you had to say. We're sticking with Instagram today. Odinun says 1.14% is too low and cheap. We also have Chirime. Every quarter, there will be an upward adjustment. Is that how you wish to raise revenue, is asking. Then Eddie says, we will die in this country. Oh, increment again. Kodjo says, settings and Kwan, nothing, they happen. We have Massive SP. This government only came to do settings. You also have Yusuf Mahama. My namesake Mahama will never change. Yesterday was fuel, today electricity. The Gen Z, this is how Mahama the president looks like. We also have Gifty Boating. Most exciting news I have heard in 2025. This is interesting to me. Then we have Fosua Dina. This is not too much. Ghanaians should pay with ease and without any complaints. We also have Oba. Mahama is the hope for Mother Ghana. Kwame says, Abain Papa. And that is what you had to tell us. Well, we wait for October the 1st, 2025. Let's see what will happen. My name is Nana Amakwa. Joshua, over to you.
Well, thank you, Nana Amakwa, for bringing us social media. But what is real and what is the case is that from the 1st of October, you and I would have to cough up more in terms of electricity tariffs. You're still watching news from here on GH1 Television. Tariffs. Let's talk about some other issues. And lawyer and former Tamale Central MP Alhaji Yunusa Fusheni has welcomed the nomination of Justice Paul Bafoboni as the next Chief Justice of Ghana. This follows the removal of former Chief Justice Gertrude Araba Isaba Saki Tokono. On Tuesday, President John Mahama, through his spokesperson Felix Kwachiofosu, announced the Justice Bafoboni's name has been forwarded to the Council of State for consideration in line with Article 1441 of the 1992 Constitution. Justice Bafoboni, the most senior among the 9 remaining Supreme Court justices, has been serving as acting Chief Justice since Justice Tokonu's suspension and subsequent removal. Justice Bafoboni, the most... Okay, so that is what we do know now. Justice Bafoboni nominated as the Chief Justice. I remember he was acting in that capacity until this announcement from the presidency that indeed his name has been forwarded to the Council of State. So let's get on the phone lines now and speak to Alhaji Yunus Afuseni. He's joined us for a conversation on this. So Alhaji, for most people, well, this is not surprising. I mean, being that he was acting already in that capacity, it was just normal or was expected that indeed he would be nominated as CJ. Did you also see that coming?
Right, exactly. I mean, I don't see it as being overwhelmingly surprising because he was acting in a constitutional capacity. It is not John Dramani Mahama of the country who made him acting chief executive. It is the constitution that made him the acting chief executive. The constitution provides that in the absence of the chief justice, the most senior in line to the constitution, Justice Bafuboni was acting chief justice. Now, Justice Bafuboni has been on the bench since 2008, when he was elevated from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. He was there 11 years before Justice Tokono came there. Now, he brings in into the position diversity of experiences. 30 or more years experience on the bench, starting from the Circuit Court up to the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and now the Supreme Court. Now, before he even joined the bench, he worked with the prison service and other organizations. He's a man of the world. He has experience that will bear on his role as Chief Justice.
Right.
His most immediate task will be to restore some sanity, dignity.
And that's where I want to bring the conversation to, as to what would be your expectations of Justice Bafuboni.
Yeah, I just went straight into it. So you will bring sanity, discipline, integrity, reputation onto the bench. What His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has done is to bring some level of certainty and closure to the what has been happening at the Supreme Court, in the sense that Justice Bafuboni was acting, and so now we will have a substantive Chief Justice if the Council of State approves of him, forwards his name to the Parliament for further consideration and approval, and so that he can then occupy that role as a substantive Chief Justice for a period of 2 years.
Right.
I believe, and seriously so, that he will bring his experience to bear on the bench.
Right, Alhaji, I mean, you being a lawyer yourself, what are some of the hurdles you foresee that Justice Bafuboni would be confronted with?
First of all, we'll have to unite the Supreme Court, justices of the Supreme Court behind him. He has to be very forthright in dealing with his colleagues, because the perception out there, I'm not saying that's the reality, the perception out there has been that the bench has somehow been done up less. His duty will be to ensure that partisan politics takes a back seat on the Supreme Court, and that the justices will be seen not only to be dispensing justice, but will manifestly be dispensing justice.
Very well. Alhaji, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Alhaji Yunus Afuseni is a former member of Parliament for Tamale Central. But let's move away, because the National Communications Authority has revealed that the committee set up to look into the controversial DSTV pricing saga between Communications Minister Sam George and MultiChoice Ghana will also look at ways to curb the piracy of decoders. You recall the committee was set up after back and forth between the minister and MultiChoice over calls for the company to reduce its pricing by at least 30%. But in a statement issued September 23, 2025, the NCA noted that the report will be completed by September 29, 2025. It added that the committee was also tasked to devise strategies to combat piracy of decoders, especially from Nigeria to Ghana. To some stories of crime, and now, and Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service, DCOP Lydia Kodjo, has revealed that 10 out of a 15-member criminal syndicate have been arrested following an intelligence operation that lasted for a period of 6 months. The syndicate is said to have been involved in a series of bank robberies across Ahafo, Eastern, Ashanti, and Central regions.
For a period of 6 months, the Ghana Police Service, under the able leadership of the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Christian Teteyohono, has successfully dismantled the notorious criminal syndicates who have been behind several robberies in various regions of the country. The syndicate, believed to be made up of about 15 persons, have carried out mainly bank robberies in the Ahafo, Western, Central, Eastern, and Ashanti regions, in addition to other robberies. So far, 10 members of the syndicate have been arrested and are in police custody, as you just witnessed them today in this room. 3 other suspects were shot dead following an exchange of fire with the police during the operation, and efforts are ongoing to get the remaining suspects arrested. The suspects are Akwesi Ejay, alias Cobra, Ibrahim Al-Hassan, Samuel Apia, alias Akwesi Mugu, Francis Aqua, alias Preman, David Obobi, alias Wasti, Martin Akansina, alias 1 Billion, Nana Yao Frimpong, alias Mystical, Kodjo Atingawo, alias Boga, Samuel Akwesi Jan, Stephen Say, Koku Pepra, alias X5, he is deceased. Bozin is also deceased. Kwabna Owusu Ansa is at large, and 1 Albert also at large.
Well, you're still watching news from here on GH1 television with me, Joshua Kodjo Mensah. Let's take a breather. We'll return with more. Well, thank you so much for staying with us here on Newsroom. Let's bring you business.
The Business Brief is brought to you by CompuGhana, passion for technology. The Business Brief is brought to you by CompuGhana, passion for technology.
And in business, Ecuador is poised to produce over 650,000 metric tons of cocoa in the 2026-2027 season, potentially surpassing Ghana as the world's second largest cocoa producer, according to Ontanenda, chairman of the country's Cocoa Exporters Association, and Cacao Ivan, who made the revelation in an email to Reuters, attributed the anticipated growth to soaring global cocoa prices, which have incentivized farmers in his country to invest in their plots backed by both public and private sector support, resulting in increased yields. Cocoa prices more than doubled last year, reaching record highs above $12,000 per ton due to failed harvests and disease in West African producers Ivory Coast and Ghana, which account for approximately half of the world's cocoa supply. Although prices have fallen by about a third this year, they remain at historically elevated levels. Ecuadorian farmers receive around 90% of the world price, according to Ontaneda. In contrast, farmers in Ivory Coast and Ghana typically receive about 60 to 70% of the world price at best. Well, let's speak to the Corporate Affairs Director of Cocoa Board, Jerome Kweku. Jerome, thank you so much for joining us. So what do you make of this news coming from Ecuador about taking our position as the second largest producer of cocoa?
Thank you very much for having me. I think that as a country or as a regulator, we do not have control over what another sovereign country does in respect of production of cocoa. So I also read the same story that you read for your viewers and listeners to also hear and then watch as well. And I think that, yes, we have different situations in respect to the two countries. Now, the very things that are affecting Ghanaians or Ghana in respect of the production of cocoa is quite different from what is happening in Ecuador. So when you come to Ghana and West Africa for that matter, you did indicate that we have been affected largely by CSSVB. That is the viral disease which has been affecting the crop. And this has largely contributed to a global shortage. So if you are in a country where you are faced with some of these issues, certainly a country which is not experiencing the same obviously will have an advantage or an edge over you in respect of that. And then another important thing that we also need to consider is that in as much as we do not have control over whatever activity that that country do in respect of cocoa production,
right,
it is important for us to know as to how much tonnage that we have been producing as a country. In 2024-2025, even though we are not finally done with the reconciliation, I think we possibly may be doing about 600,000 metric tons for the 2024-2025 season. And also with the 2025-2026, we are envisaging of having about 60,000 metric tons leased. So if Ecuador says that 2026-2027, they will be looking at 650,000 metric tons. So I'm not thinking that it is anywhere compared to what we are producing as a country.
Right.
Because the 2025-2026, we are looking at having 650,000 metric tons. All right, 650,000 metric tons. So if what we possibly may be achieving for the 25-26 season is what Ecuador is envisaging to have, then we cannot say on the basis of that they will be overtaking Ghana in respect of what the second position. And another important thing that we need to consider is that even Cote d'Ivoire, which happens to be the largest, when it comes to the production of premium cocoa, Ghana still tops, or Ghana is still leading in terms of what? Premium cocoa.
Right.
So that argument or that fact also shouldn't be lost on us. It is not about the wholesale production of cocoa, but we are looking at the quality or the premium of it. And that is what makes other countries or chocolate industries wanting to purchase cocoa from what? Cocoa beans from Ghana. So it is important that as well for us to also make consideration in respect of that. And also the basic law of supply. If you have an excess supply, certainly it will cause a drop in price of that particular commodity. And if you are unable to balance the cost as against what? The selling price, and obviously you'll be running at a loss as a country and as a regulator. So it is also important or incumbent on us as regulator to be very particular about it. That is it that we want to produce in one quantity and then see a drop on the international market in terms of the price, and we have the effect, or we need to peg or balance it, whereby at least we put in some measures that even if we are producing more, we have some internal mechanisms or policy whereby we'll be able to absorb some of the beans which possibly will not travel outside the shores of Ghana. And this comes to the policies that Dr. Randy Abe and his management team are putting in place to ensure that we revamp cocoa processing company, that is CPC, in order to have the capacity to produce more chocolate, all right? To produce more chocolate, whether flavor and what have you. So he is tirelessly working towards achieving that. So that when we gravitate towards the point of having...
Very well. Jerome, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm sure Pascal would also have to react to that. And so joining us on Zoom is the Deputy General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, GHO, Dr. Pascal Kaba. So, Doc, you heard Jerome. It says that, well, he's also read this report. And, well, there are measures being put in place to ensure that we see proper cocoa boosting the industry under the leadership of Dr. Randy Abe. Should we be worried?
Anyway, as a country, anytime when it comes to things that put us within a challenging situation, we should be worried. However, at least there's solace in some of the things Jerome spoke about. So we have to take it from that point. And we should also put on record that the quantities Ecuador is trying to turn out, Ghana has never turned out those quantities before. And so sometimes we shouldn't be panicking over some of the issues that come out from other dimensions. Again, we should look at it from the point of view that whatever we need to do as a country, we should always target and put our minds and resources together to do it. Ecuador does not just get up the day and they are thinking of coming out with this kind of quantities. They targeted it and they kept a lot of measures in place towards achieving this. What that also means is that we as a country, if we think that we need to go in this tandem and we want to still continue maintaining our position as even the first producer, even getting to the first producer of cocoa within the world, we can equally do it as well. Depending on the fact that the way we decide to target and put the needed resources towards the industry. Because, for instance, Ecuador did some kind of targeting. They invested in it. We don't just get up and then and we do know that, again, within our sector, if you look, the dynamics are not only the same. We are confronted with certain diseases that Ecuador might not be confronted in. And when it comes to the...
Unfortunately, Doc, for the sake of time, we'll have to end the conversation. But I'm sure we'll pick it up and get more from Dr. Kaba on this particular development. But it's time to bring you the latest in the world of sports, and Benjamin Yamwa is here.
Our box story is coming up on the Black Star list, and also we'll hear about the death of the Ghanaian boxer. A lot more coming up on him after this. So Ghana's under-17 in the Starlets suffered a 3-0 defeat to host nation Ivory Coast in the second Group A game at the ongoing WAFO Zone B under-17 Cup of Nations on Tuesday night. The Ivorians struck early, breaking the deadlock in the 3rd minute to take control of the game. Despite Ghana's efforts to respond, the hosts held on to their lead going into the break. In the second half, Côte d'Ivoire added 2 more goals to seal a convincing 3-0 win in front of their home crowd. The loss means the Black Starlets now face a decisive encounter against Niger in their final group match on Friday, where they will need to get a result to see them advance or qualify for the next stage of the ongoing championship being held in La Côte d'Ivoire. Now, in every sport, there are fighters and then there are personalities who rise above the punches to capture the hearts of the people. Now, Ghana's Boa Bali is one of them, a warrior in the ring, a comedian on the mic, and a showman who turns every fight into an unforgettable experience. Peter Kwadato takes art inside the life and career of Ernest Akuche, a.k.a. Boa Bali, the boxer, the showman, and the man behind the legend, who unfortunately passed on yesterday.
A fearless warrior and the man who turned every bout into a show, thrilling fans with his comic jabs and audacious threats. In the ring, he fights with pure heart. Outside it, he captures the crowd with a personality you never forget.
I don't fear Jacob Blissy because Jacob Blissy is not a man, it's a woman. That's why I challenge you to come and beat him on the 12th of September. I'll try to beat Jacob Blissy and I'll beat him.
That is why Ghanaians love him, because the Baobali represents raw passion, courage, and authenticity.
6 wins, just 1 loss, and no goal. All of the 6 wins coming by way of knockout. Please welcome the hero all the way from Choko in Accra, named Ernest Akuche, and we all call him
Boxing is not only about punches, it's also about spirit, and Baobali spirit overflows.
Me winning. No nimba afinona. Neka shiagbe kura. No nimba yuene. Matu eni ring game. E you aga J boxer, you like a J boxer, you see ino mo e for fe no. Nigga gbe ma gba eno fele. Pago e baba meet warrior. Obanyo sure no. Unless you kiss the oro.
Agree or disagree with his words, you can't deny the energy, joy, and electricity he brings to the sport and his fans.
Well, may his soul rest in perfect peace. That's it for us in sports.
Legends aren't defined.
Vinyama for bringing us the latest in the world of sports. And of course, on the international front, I'm sure that most of you have seen that viral video of Donald Trump basically criticizing the escalator and also the prompter at the UN General Assembly. He says, well, that's the gift that the UN has given him in his own country, the United States of America. But that's how the curtains on the bulletin this afternoon. Many thanks for your company. I am Joshua Kodjo. And there's more news for you at starfm.com.gh. Good afternoon.